Welcome to True Crime Case Files. Today, we're diving into a chilling case set in the upscale suburb of Johns Creek, Georgia, in late August 2020. This story involves a seemingly perfect family, hidden dark secrets, and a twisted plot for murder. On a hot afternoon, August 28, 2020, the peaceful suburb of Johns Creek, Georgia, was rocked by a gruesome discovery. Around 3 p.m., Susan Mano, a close friend of the Frisch family, arrived at their home for a scheduled visit. Susan, a longtime resident of Johns Creek, had known the Frisch family for years and often participated in community and church events with and Frisch. As she approached the house, she noticed something unusual. It was eerily quiet. She knocked on the front door but received no response. Feeling uneasy, she tried the door and found it unlocked. Calling out for Ann and Steven, she stepped inside. The house was silent, with no signs of the usual family activity. Anxiety growing, Susan decided to check the basement, where Steven often worked on his gardening projects. As she descended the stairs, a strange, faint smell made her heart race. At the bottom, Susan's eyes met a horrific scene. There, on the cold concrete floor, lay Steven Frisch, lifeless, surrounded by a pool of blood. His head was battered, and a rope was tightly wound around his neck. Beside his body was the remote control for the cable box, covered in blood. Susan froze in shock and disbelief, unable to process the brutal sight before her. Gathering her wits, she quickly pulled out her phone and dialed 911. Her voice trembled as she described the scene to the operator, struggling to maintain composure. Within minutes, the sound of sirens filled the air as police and emergency responders rushed to the Frisch residence. Still in shock, Susan waited outside, watching as the once peaceful home became the center of a major crime scene investigation. The discovery of Steven's body marked the beginning of a complex and tragic case that would leave the community of Johns Creek reeling. Steven Frisch was a 45-year-old husband and father known for his quiet and reserved nature. He worked in software design and was highly regarded in his field for his meticulous attention to detail and innovative designs. Steven and his family lived in Johns Creek, an upscale suburb of Atlanta known for its friendly community and good schools. Their charming two-story home often had flowers blooming in the front yard, thanks to Steven's love for gardening. He was passionate about his work and often spent late hours perfecting his designs, earning admiration from his colleagues for his dedication and work ethic. Outside of work, Steven enjoyed simple pleasures. He loved gardening and spent many weekends tending to his flowers and vegetables. He also cherished playing with his two children, a 12-year-old son named Beamer and a 10-year-old daughter named Portia. Steven's relationship with his wife, Ann, seemed picture-perfect to outsiders. They were active in their community and attended church regularly, and was known for organizing events and parties, often showcasing their seemingly happy family. However, behind closed doors, their marriage had its challenges. Friends and family described Steven as kind, dependable, and somewhat introverted. He wasn't the type to seek the spotlight, preferring quiet moments with his family. Steven's dream was to create a legacy through his architectural work and to provide a stable and loving home for his children. He often spoke about taking a family vacation to Disney World, a trip they had planned for later in the year before the COVID-19 pandemic disrupted their plans. In the days leading up to his death, Steven had been working on a major project that he hoped would secure a significant promotion. He was excited about the future and looked forward to celebrating the project's completion with his family. Despite the stresses of his job, Steven always made time for his children, helping Beamer with his school science projects and reading bedtime stories to Portia. His sudden and violent death left his family and friends in shock. The community of Johns Creek mourned the loss of a man who was not only a skilled professional but also a loving father and husband. Steven Frisch's tragic end was a stark contrast to the peaceful life he had worked so hard to build. When the Johns Creek Police Department received Susan Mano's frantic 911 call on August 28, 2020, they responded quickly. Detective Sheena Hayes, a seasoned investigator with over 20 years of experience, led the team. Known for her sharp instincts and methodical approach, Hayes was determined to get to the bottom of the case. The police arrived at the Frisch residence within minutes. The neighborhood was quiet, with neighbors peeking out from behind their curtains, shocked by the sudden commotion. The house was quickly cordoned off with yellow police tape as officers began their investigation. The basement, where Steven Frisch's body was found, was a scene of horror. The concrete floor was stained with blood, and Steven's body lay in the center, surrounded by gardening tools and supplies. The remote control for the cable box, covered in blood, was found near his head, indicating it had been used to bludgeon him. The rope around his neck was tightly wound, showing signs of a violent struggle. Detective Hayes and her team meticulously combed through the crime scene. They collected fingerprints from the remote control and nearby surfaces, hoping to find a match. DNA samples were taken from the rope and any other potential evidence. The team used luminol to detect traces of blood that might have been cleaned up, illuminating the extent of the violence in a bluish glow. They also photographed every angle of the scene, ensuring no detail was overlooked. Outside the house, a crowd began to gather. Local news crews from stations like WSB-TV arrived, their cameras rolling as they reported on the shocking murder in the typically quiet suburb. Reporters interviewed neighbors, who expressed their disbelief and sorrow over Steven's death. Inside, the investigation continued. Detective Hayes noticed that despite the brutal attack, there were no signs of forced entry, suggesting the killer was someone Steven knew and trusted. The police questioned Susan Mano, who found the body. Still in shock, she recounted her discovery, providing crucial details about the Frisch family's recent activities. The police also looked into Steven's recent communications. They searched his phone, computer, and social media accounts, seeking clues that might point to a motive or suspect. Emails, text messages, and recent calls were scrutinized for any hint of trouble in Steven's life. Detective Hayes and her team worked late into the night, piecing together the events leading up to the murder. The evidence collected at the scene painted a picture of a brutal personal attack. As the investigation progressed, the police began to build a list of potential suspects, starting with those closest to Steven. The first suspect the police focused on was Anne Frisch, Steven's wife. At 42, and was known for her charismatic and outgoing personality. She was often seen at local events, organizing community gatherings and church activities. To neighbors and friends, and seemed like the perfect wife and mother, always smiling and full of energy. However, the police knew that appearances could be deceiving. Detective Sheena Hayes began by interviewing Anne at the police station, and appeared distraught, her eyes red from crying. She explained that she had been out shopping at the local Whole Foods when the murder occurred, and presented her receipt and mentioned that she had bumped into a friend, Martha Green, who could verify her alibi. However, the police were not entirely convinced and needed to investigate further. The police dug into Anne's background. They discovered that despite her public persona, she had been involved in a secret love affair with a man named Nick Bromley. This revelation added a new layer of complexity to the case. Could Anne's affair have led to Steven's murder? Detective Hayes questioned Anne about her relationship with Nick. Anne admitted to the affair and said the sex was fabulous, but insisted she had no reason to harm Steven. She claimed that Steven was a good husband and father, and that their marriage, while sexually unfulfilling, was stable. Anne's demeanor during the interrogation was a mix of sadness and defensiveness. She seemed genuinely heartbroken over Steven's death, but also wary of the police's suspicions. The police also examined Anne's financial records. They found that Steven had a substantial life insurance policy with Anne as the primary beneficiary. This discovery raised questions about a potential financial motive. Could Anne have wanted the insurance money to start a new life with Nick? To verify Anne's alibi, Detective Hayes spoke with Martha Green. Martha confirmed that she had seen Anne at Whole Foods around the time of the murder. However, the timeline was tight, and there was still a possibility that Anne could have been involved. The police also checked surveillance footage from the store, which showed Anne shopping but did not conclusively prove her innocence. Despite Anne's cooperation, the evidence against her began to mount. Her affair with Nick and the potential financial motive made her a prime suspect. The police continued to monitor her closely, looking for any signs of further deception. As the investigation progressed, Anne's calm and composed exterior began to crack. She became increasingly anxious, knowing that the police were scrutinizing her every move. The once vibrant and confident woman now appeared haunted by the shadows of her secrets. Nick Bromley, the second suspect, was Anne Frisch's lover. At 38, Nick was known for his charm and fitness. He worked as a personal trainer at a local gym and was popular among his clients. Nick had a reputation as a ladies' man and was often seen driving his sleek BMW around Johns Creek. Detective Sheena Hayes brought Nick in for questioning. When he arrived at the police station, Nick appeared confident and relaxed. He denied any involvement in Steven's murder and claimed he was at the gym during the time of the crime. He even provided